Today, we will be looking at the Marzocchi Bomber CR. Up in the front I have a RockShox Yari with motion control. It's got the Devon C1 spring. I'm running 30% sag with 3 tokens. This bike is a 29er. The bike has 160 travel front and rear. I have a 2.4 Big Betty in the rear and a Magic Mary 2.6 in the front. These components can determine how good or bad a shock can feel. Now on to the real reason you guys clicked on this video. Coming in at $300, this is considered a reasonable price looking at alternatives. The RockShox Super Deluxe Coil is $530 and the Fox DHX2 is $580. Although you don't get all the adjustments, who really needs that? The Bomber has rebound adjustment and low speed compression adjustment. Both work as intended. The shock I purchased had a 65mm stroke, so I bought a 2.8 Fox steel spring. This was confusing at first, but I'll link the chart down below that helped me. I purchased a 450 pound spring and I weigh around 170 pounds. The weight more so depends on the suspension design, so I'll link the calculator in the description too. Now on to how it rides. When I first sat on the bike, I noticed how little stiction there was. I've only ridden air shocks, so a coil was a new experience. Hopping around in the driveway, it was super easy to set up the shock. I'm definitely not particular with my suspension, but small bump compliance was awful with the old Fox DPS that came with this bike. The inline frame is very progressive, so when I was going fast through chunky stuff, the shock felt very harsh. With the coil, I can hold a straight line through the chunk and not be jostled around. I felt an immediate difference the first time I rode the coil. I never noticed the bike being less poppy with the coil. I can still bunny hop and do jibs just as easy. This is mainly because of the design of my frame, so it might be different if you have a more linear linkage system. During the summer, I do a ton of XC. Since this is my only mountain bike, I was skeptical that the coil was going to make the bike climb bad. There was a bit more bob, but to begin with, there is barely none with my air shock. I believe if I put another air shock on this frame with a bigger negative chamber than my DPS, it would climb the exact same as with the coil. If you ride a coil rear shock with the proper sag for your body weight, you'll notice that it's much more smoother throughout its travel than an air shock. The coil has less stiction because the rod has to pass through less seals. It makes the rear wheel feel more planted over the rough stuff. This shock is based off the Fox van. The knob placement is the exact same and they both have the same adjustments. The main difference is that the new Marzocchi comes in metric and trunnion sizes. This is a plus because the van was tried and true, so it will be less likely to have problems. For servicing the shock, there is not much information on how to do it yourself. I believe you have to send it back to Fox for it to be serviced. This is a big disadvantage as with air shocks, you can do a full rebuild yourself and it will be much cheaper. Coil shocks are limited to progressive frames. If you have a linear suspension design, coil shock will not work. It will blow through the travel unless you get a progressive spring, but in some cases, a frame can be still too linear. Before purchasing a coil for your bike, research if people have done it to your frame model and see how they like it. The shock does not come with a spring. You have to buy one that matches your body weight. Luckily, it's not too expensive. They're around $30. I'll put the calculator for finding the correct pound spring in the description. All in all, I would recommend this shock. It's one of the least expensive coil shocks on the market and it still performs great. It comes in a variety of sizes, you can set it and forget it, and it performs great. Well, that's the end of this video. If this video helped you, you know what to do. Drop some suggestions on what I should review or shoot next. Thanks for watching.